We're going to go from value to growth. And we're going to get into the details of the story of a club who's honestly been able to grow exponentially since being taken over by new ownership, going from the lower leagues in the Italian football ecosystem up to Serie A, and just recently qualifying for the first time ever for the UEFA Champions League. This is a project which started with an ambition to create success on the pitch, but also build a luxury brand off it. And we're going to speak with a man very much at the center of that project to talk about what he's learned, what have been some of the greatest challenges, some of the greatest successes, and where we go from here. So please, I'm delighted to welcome here on stage for our next one-to-one session, the president of Como 1907, Mirwan Suwarso. Welcome. It'd be fair to say that everybody wants a piece of you these days, Mirwan.
There'd be no math in this discussion, right?
No mathematics in this discussion, don't worry. The numbers are past us for now. But obviously, since you arrived, a lot of interviews given. Everybody wants to talk to you about this project. And I have to say congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
I think at the beginning of the season, not many of us would have predicted that Como would have been able to finish fourth in Serie A, but that's what happened. You had an amazing push towards the end with 3 straight wins, and you're finishing ahead of juggernauts like Milan and Juventus. I don't know how popular that makes you in Italy, to be honest, and with the establishment, but we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But before we get into what's gone right on and off the pitch, I wanted to go back to 2019 when a decision was made to purchase the club, and how the project has evolved and how much quicker this success has come than honestly you predicted on day one.
Well, as you know, I bought the club as a mistake. I bought it for a documentary project trying to put Indonesian players there, because at the time I was running a TV station, and in the 90s there was an Indonesian team competing in the Italian Primavera. So I mimicked that, I copied that project in Birmingham. We had academy boys playing against UK academies, and the TV ratings were higher than the Premier League. At the time, we just lost the Italian Serie A rights, so I thought, okay, let's double down on this. Let's buy a Serie D club in Italy and try to put some of our players there, broadcast it, at least I have consistent programming, only to find out that's not allowed after I purchased it. And I purchased it, I think, with zero due diligence. I just kind of I like hanging out in Milan, so I bought a club closest to Milan. There were a few choices. I think it was Provercelli, Bari, and Como. I just look at the map. Como's right here, Milan's here. Okay, I'll buy that one. And only to find out I wasn't able to do it. But I got away with it for 2 years. I think we were in Serie D. The minute we bought it, 3 months later, they got promoted. I think paying the salaries actually helped to motivate the players. And then in Serie G, 2 years, I was hiding it from the owners, not disclosing that we own a football team. I used it as a content play. We made 2 documentaries there. It's called, you can find it on YouTube now, it's called The American, where I put an American CEO running the club. And I told him to make all the wrong decisions. For example, hire the sports director who has no experience. Hire the most bizarre player that you can find. And we hired a guy who just got out of jail for robbing, was involved in a bank robbery in Belgium. I thought it was great storytelling, but the team kept winning. The sports director still stays with us, and we got promoted to Serie B, and then I had to come to the owners. So my content budget has now gone to 11 million just for this project. I'm like, what is this? It's a club you bought 3 years ago? And they weren't very happy. And as a punishment, I was sent over to Italy and run it as a business. And so far, so good. I'm kind of liking it in Italy.
Okay, well, what you've just described seems a little bit like it's a great story, and that in itself would be a great documentary. And I'm sure there's been a lot of learning by trial and error. Before we walked up here, you said there's so many mistakes we've made in all of these years. But in spite of those mistakes, you've been able to build a successful football team. What are some of the key learnings that you can share with us from this path so far?
I think the first one was actually trying to find measurability. How do you actually measure what was prior to that was not measurable, but just kind of like, how do you measure performance of a team that would account to points, winning, losing, performance growth. And before that, you always had these football guys who were telling us, oh, but you got to see this guy, the way he kicked the ball, the way he runs, the grass is, steady, he's got perfect balance. And I was like, I'm not going to explain that to my boss. No. That's like the most dangerous thing I could say to him. And I watched Moneyball by coincidence, and I just kind of like, I need to email this guy. I got to figure out where I can find Billy Bean. And I convinced him after 2 years to actually come to Como and to take a look after he kept saying no, 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 no. Bought him a lot of drinks, bought him a lot of food, and he then says, let's do it. So we hired their platform. We used the platform's called Zealous at the time to learn how to actually do the, I guess, analytics. And then, of course, I met Ian Graham from Fluidonautics, hired his services as well. And then Jamestown from Brighton's, and I took a guy from Brentford as well, took a whole bunch of people who are actually in this business, tried to learn it. I'm Indonesian, so I am expert in reverse engineering, trying to copy everything that people has done and trying to make it cheaper and better, more affordable to us. So after having all those, then I said, like, I need a professor in AI, I need a professor to then create our own system. We have 250 programmers back home that can then help us create our own analytics platform. And then I went to the owners and says, okay, you guys own a milk company, right? So the football players are your cows. They're calves. You can measure them. This is how they grow. This is the metrics that we need. And all of a sudden, they became engaged. So we can sell the cows. Yes. Do we get milk from it? Yes. It's the inventories that you create from it, the commercial revenue. And then slowly they says, well, it's an interesting analogy. Prove it, they make it work. And so far, they're quite happy.
Can you explain to us, though, what the process is in order to be able to invest in a club that comes from a small city, 55,000 people?
85.
Sorry, 85. Small stadium. And I remember driving by the Como Stadium a few years ago, even before you bought it, and it looked like a relic. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for the football side to work, but then you've also turned the Como brand into quite a sexy and appealing one, having a very clear, proactive strategy to bring in celebrities, influencers, and people who can move the needle on the digital engagement side, and which then feeds your commercial strategy. So, long story short, how do you balance growing the club from an infrastructure standpoint and talent standpoint, and then promote it in that special way? And it obviously helps that Como is a trendy and sexy destination in itself.
I think it starts with the latter, because when we were in the third division, Serie C, I was able to sell the documentaries to 75 countries on the base that it was Lake Como, a football team in Lake Como. And I think I took the words from our CEO at the time, Michael Gandler. He says, Como is a dichotomy of fans, which is like one who are living affluently on the lake and the people who are servicing these people who live on the lake. So that became a very good storytelling component of it. So then I realized if people were buying the program because of the location, because of the dichotomy that it has, so we have to build our business on the location, because the football team at the time, even in second division, was not going to move any needles. That's when I realized that our biggest strength is who we are and where we are. We are Comaski. We have to be authentic to the region. And only then can we have the buy-in from our fans, our core audience, who will be amplifying the storytelling. And as we do it, first, line of attack was the merchandising. We purposely told Adidas, we don't want your money, but we want the ability to take your products, your blanks, and we redesign them ourselves. So there was a very stupid decision according to my bosses, but it became a brilliant result in the end, because now, by having Adidas, we immediately have the credibility of a brand that people don't mind paying a premium for. But we have the ability to design our own stuff based on what we want to create, the Lago di Como stuff, where people says, why you put Sam Kumask on it? It means nothing. But when tourists come, and they come, I can sell a $16 tracksuit for 250 euros because he has Adidas, because he has Lago di Como, because it's who we are. So very quickly we become clear what our brand and our standing is.
On the brand stand, did you learn anything from Venezia, from maybe a Wrexham, what they've done as well with that celebrity element of it? Or not really?
No, not really. But we're also blessed on the celebrity side. Once the team became into Serie A, the hotels, I mean, Como is a nice place, but it's not exactly the most exciting place. After 3 days, you would want to find something else to do. So a lot of the celebrities would suddenly go to the hotel concierge, like, what else is there to do? Rather than shopping to Milan or whatnot. And they start connecting us to our football team, saying, would you like to watch a football game? And that's when we say, like, yeah. And we would get the call, for example, Hugh Grant is in town, he would like to watch a football game, can you give tickets? Like, how many? 10, 15, 20? We'll give it to him, you know? And from there, it grew more and more and more and more, yeah.
On the sporting side, you mentioned some of the crazy decisions that you made since you bought the club, since the Jaram Group bought the club back in 2019, and how they paid off. That would also be fair to say when you hired Cesc Fàbregas, because he had never been a head coach before. But that's paid off, to say the least. Tell us about Cesc. Tell us about how you made that decision, how the group made that decision, and the kind of culture he's introduced and developed at the club. Because I think if we follow football, it's quite fascinating to see his passion in a lot of the content that you guys publish. And it's real, it's genuine. Like, you can tell he means it, even though he won everything there was with Spain, with Chelsea, with Arsenal. He's 100% in.
Yeah. So when we brought in Cesc as a player, we still had the thought of actually maybe having a big name can help us grow. It didn't work as much, as well, because we increased the budget, I think, from 11 million to 25 million in second year of Serie B. And the team finished equally average, 13th. There was nothing that actually helped us grow our business faster. But that's when I realized to double down on the commercials and actually growing it as a brand using the lake. But having Cesc, we had a lot of conversations, and this is also the same time when I wanted to have the analytics team to become stronger and independent of the football team. It stays with us in the holding company. They showed us, the team at the time was finishing maybe 6th or 8th, I can't remember, but we knew the data were saying we were overperforming. It's a matter of time before they'll do a correction, and we will end up at the bottom. Cesc at the time just started coaching the youth team. He wanted to try to be a coach. I didn't want to be the guy who thinks he's smart enough to understand football and make all the decisions. So I quickly tried to create a board of football. I wanted a head of recruitment who understand everything about data and manage the scouts. So I found a guy from AZ Alkmaar because I knew there was Billy Bean's old club. I bring him over. He was only 23 at the time when I brought him over. I tried to find a sports director who had the smallest budget but made the biggest profit and who was out of a job. And I found the guy in Holland. He had, I think, 5 million, and then he made like 75 million in revenue within 3 years. And the interview is very interesting because it was an interview in which he says, I was too young, I was too arrogant, I'm like, okay, you're hired immediately. And so those were my first 2 hires. And the guy from Brentford, who was just doing numbers all the time. So I looked at Cesc, and my gut says, I think Cesc knows how to coach because our team was complete crap the academy, they didn't even have defenders. They didn't have fullbacks. That's how bad, because 4 years ago, we didn't have an academy, basically. It was rented out. And Cesc was able to play against the big teams and win. So I called this guy, the Dutch guy I had, Mark-Jan Vlederis. Mark, he was our head of football strategy. He's like, Mark, I think I found the coach, but I need you to take a look. Watch Cesc game, and he looked at it, and he watched all the videos after that. He has a clear strategy, he has a clear pattern, he has a clear identity. I think we can give him a shot. So this one I spoke to Cesc, asked him to present his business plan, asked him to present his vision, and it was very, very impressive. And I said, like, okay, would you like to take over? You have 2 weeks. Let's find a time when we'll sack the coach and you come in. How much time do you need? That's when he says, I need 2 weeks. So that's the international break. So that's when we made the call. And I'm happy to be proven correct, but it wasn't my decision, it was everybody's decision. So if it gone south, it wasn't my fault.
Of course, delegate those decisions for sure. How long did it switch for you after the last round of matches in Serie A from amazing, we made the Champions League, to, oh damn, we made the Champions League?
Immediately.
What does that mean for you?
To be very honest, it was that I knew Cesc wants to win the league. I know Cesc approaches every game wanting to win. There was never a time in which he would set out defensively. Even going to AC Milan or Inter Milan in San Siro, we would want to attack and press. That attitude is contagious. That belief that we can win everything is contagious across us, even to the non-football sector, that we can achieve everything that we want to do. So I remember when we started out getting promoted to Serie A, and I was doing the negotiations with some of the players, when they say, we want a Champions League bonus, I'm like, yeah, sure, take it. You can have your, whatever it was, the amount. I was giving out Champions League bonus like I was giving candy, never thinking they would ever get close to it. Second season, I started like, oh, no. I think we are a little bit good enough to actually push to Europe. That was second season in Serie A. I mean, first season, we had to buy 22 players in order for us. We knew that 50% of the teams that get promoted get relegated in the first year, 75% by the second year. So we knew we had to change the whole team to become competitive and to be able to be steady. We see ourselves as a startup. You have to invest early, create a runway of 5 to 10 years before you can actually start seeing the results. Midway in the first season, December, we saw if we invest a little bit more, we can get to 10th place. Pretty sure of that, and that was achieved. We bought Kakare, Jean Boutet, Asandiao, and Ivan Smolcic, four players that help us push from mid-table to get, from lower ranks to mid-table. Second season, we knew if we change a few positions, we can increase even further because our XG is actually quite high. If we can continue creating, hopefully we can convert as well and increase our positions. I think midway in like October or November this season, we saw we were good enough to push for Europe. We saw how our performance against AC and Inter was compatible. We beat Juventus already at that time. We lost to Roma very close. So we chose not to buy or strengthen in the winter window. We chose to invest. We bought an 18-year-old from Sweden for 11 million, knowing that within the business plan, he can grow 3-4 times the value in like about 3 years. And then comes January, our forecast was correct. Cesc was winning and winning and winning and winning. That's when we started creating a plan. How do we recoup the overpromised bonuses that we promised 2 years ago, you know? And when we were playing in the last game against Cremonese, and I was told Milan was losing, which really ruined my day, because at that point in time, I told the team to just basically, okay, then tomorrow, we all have a meeting. We have a crisis meeting tomorrow, because not only do we have to change all our business plan to move it forward, but also we knew we have a very short runway, one season, to capitalize on the opportunity that this next season have, being in the Champions League, and also not to assume or take it for granted we will stay in the Champions League. So it means we cannot overspend, we cannot increase our spending at all, but how can we actually optimize our revenue gain as quickly as possible? So yeah, I didn't enjoy that win at all.
Well, let me follow up on that, because I wanted to ask what that means actually for the decisions you need to make this summer. What happens to the stadium? Will you be able to play there? What happens to investment in players in order to be able to be competitive with additional matches and additional expectations and be somewhat sustainable? What about the pressure you have now to adhere to new regulations when it comes to representation of Italian players? Because last year you only registered 2, I believe. So what's going through your mind, and how can you make this happen responsibly?
Well, the stadium one is not a new issue for us. When we got promoted from Serie B to Serie A, everybody said we could never play in Senigallia as well. But we were able to do the fixes and renovate within the space that we had. So the minute we finished our last game in against Parma, we already started construction in the stadium, and we were optimistic that we will be able to play in Senigallia next season.
Okay.
Miracles do happen. And the second question was...
The second question was, how do you invest in the team?
Okay.
Whilst doing so sustainably or responsibly?
We do have 24 players out on loan right now. Some of them with very good market value. So we would definitely have to monetize on that. We will do some changes to our current squad that is based on a monetary... just to give you an idea, last night, I had a text message that somebody wants to pay one of our players for 65 million. So they would help us a lot as well if we take that opportunity. But my boss says, no, we don't need the money. I'm like trying to explain it to him that we do need the money. So, I still have a few days trying to convince him.
That's not Nico Paz, though, I guess.
No, not Nico,
He'll go for more than that, yeah.
Maybe less if he goes back to Madrid. But in terms of having Italian players, when you change 22 players and you are governed by Italian regulations that you have to actually pay in full or provide a bank guarantee, it becomes very costly. Whereas if we purchase from Europe, you can pay in installments and actually manage your cash flow easier for us. So that's why we couldn't strengthen the quality of players that we needed with Italian players or buying from the league in Italy. We had to go outside. But it didn't stop us from purchasing the youth players. I do believe we have invested quite a bit in the youth sector. If I'm not mistaken, today Juventus has 13 Azzurrini, young Italian internationals. Como has 10. We are only 3 players behind them. We are ahead of Atalanta, who has been in the game a lot longer than we have. In the last Under-17 World Cup, we have 2 of our players competing, representing Italy. And every week, we keep getting new call-ups. And Cesc introduced one of the players who is only 17 in his first team squad already, I think, twice now. And from the other teams, he's played 2 in the Coppa Italia, who are still 18. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have 17, 18, 19 years old being included in the Champions League squad that we prepare for next season.
Okay, last question, because our time is running out, unfortunately. There's so much more we could talk about, but from a commercial standpoint, we saw here in Andrea's presentation earlier where the growth is, and it's commercial, because match day revenue can only take you so far, especially, for example, at a stadium like yours. The broadcast revenues are plateauing, if not decreasing. So on the commercial side, how have you been able to grow your commercial revenue, and what's your strategy there?
Well, I think we are unique because one of the things is that if I look into other football teams, their merchandising revenue, maybe 80%, or at least 70% of the proportion that comes from the jersey sales. Ours is only 30%. And year over year, our growth in merchandising revenue has been 3x of what we were before. And our projection is always even higher. We realized Como is too small for us to actually quickly grow our fan base from there. So we've adopted a model called multi-club servicing model. So we work with other clubs and providing what we are good at, which is basically either in digital strategy or in terms of retail, to now that we are servicing 11 other football teams, providing collaborations with creating their retail products. We own a brand called Rude, which is a high fashion urban streetwear brand. The t-shirt sells about 300 euro. That's how much it costs. This is the one that like LeBron wears or Jay-Z wears and every footballer now wants to wear. We are now collaborating with 14 clubs creating this premium collection. Spurs were supposed to be the first one to be launched, but they decided to make their life very exciting by joining a relegation battle. So now they've gone through it. We will launch with them, I think, July 26. Fulham, Crystal Palace, one more in the Premier League, Everton, AS Roma, Sampdoria, LAFC, Inter Miami, Montreal, Al Ittihad, Al Ula, AS Cannes, Versailles, a few more. There's quite a lot that we're working with and we'll be launching very, very shortly. We are taking over, helping them build some of the shops, the retail shops, and some running the e-commerce shops. This is some of the services that we're doing, and we estimate our projection is about between 75 million to 100 million in the next 2 years. My goal is to be able to generate 150 million per year on these our retail efforts. Because Root right now is making about 67 on its own anyway, so by accelerating it, we can grow a little bit faster and just taking the revenue now into the group as opposed to being a standalone. We have 5 brands that we're managing. We own a multi-brand store called Curva, which is now one of the best sellers is AC Milan products. So it's a high fashion, football-inspired retail brand, fashion brand that we've created. We sell AS Roma, Milan, Bologna products in there, as well as our own and Root, and we just closing Willy Chevaria as well to be over there as well. So we'll be running a very aggressive e-commerce campaign. On the hospitality side, our stadium is so small. Right. As you know, we could probably sell 100 hospitality tickets. So we thought outside the box and we said, okay, but there are so many beautiful villas around the stadium. Let's take those villas. Let's rent those villas. It becomes our hospitality facilities. So that's how we have grown now from 100 to, I think, to almost 800 people. We also even have a boat on some big game days. It becomes our hospitality. Takes about 150 people on the boat. Our tickets now has been able to grow from initially, I think, 55 to 75 to now 2,500 per game for the premium hospitality. And then the next step was for me to say, like, hey, we're already renting these villas. Why are we only renting 19 days a year? Why don't we rent for the whole year and convert them into like either a restaurant or private members club? We just soft launch our private members club. It will be fully open in October. Right now, the membership fee is very affordable. If you'd like to join, it's only 4,000 a year, but it's right on the lake, perfect view. Sign up and don't come, so I can bring a lot of people over there because that's the model that I'd like to do. Yeah, and I give you a discount. So we're doing a lot of these things. Like we own a brewery. We're pushing the brewery now. We finished servicing the stadium. Now we're pushing it outside into the locals, and the goal, hopefully, to export the license overseas. This is why you asked me about Wrexham. Yeah. I look into the aviation gin story. Right. I'm like, I don't have Ryan Reynolds. No. But Casamigo's owner is down the street. Maybe I can ask him to come over and own a brewery. So yeah, so that's where we're thinking. We separated the business into 7 companies. We have our summer academy. We created an elite academy. And in the elite academy, it costs, I think, like between 8,000 to 10,000 a week. It's full. It's insanely full. I'm not laughing. I'm happy. I thought it was a brilliant idea. But Cesc coached the academy. This is for commercial academy, not...
Right, it's free to play.
It's like IMG Academy, how it was. I saw how IMG was sold for 1.7 billion. I'm like, IMG's in Florida, that place is hot. It's like, Como is nice. Why don't I create an IMG Academy in Como? So now we're starting to build the boarding school for it, getting ready for it. We have the AP education ready. So we're getting there. We have the digital side. We're making like a lot of applications being used by other clubs as well as ours, not just the data analytics, but also health metrics that other clubs are using. Football club financial management system that a club in France is also already using. So yeah, we need to move fast. The day that we got into the Champions League tells me I need to accelerate everything, because I do believe now I don't only have my bosses telling me what to do, I think the European governing body will also tell me what to do.
Well, a lot on your plate. My final question, if in one sentence you could explain what has been the most important decision, if it's a data decision, talent decision, or culture decision, what was the most important out of those three?
I think culture, to instill what Cesc and Thierry and Varane has brought into the club, in which is that belief that we can do anything. With those three being around the clubs, they taught us that we can win every game, we can be successful in every venture that we try. And we try to bring in as many inexperienced people as possible to work at the club, to, how do you call it? So they approach everything with a naive approach and don't have a preset idea of this is how you run something. Like, no. If that's been done, we don't want to do it. If this is how someone has done it, we don't want to follow it. We always try to find our own ways, because we're too small and we're desperate and we have very little time to actually get our objective.
Mirwan, thank you so much for spending some time with us here and sharing some of your experience.
My pleasure.
Your insights, and definitely a playbook that you've been making up as you go along.
Absolutely.
And we're all really interested to see what the next chapter of this story is going to be.
Thank you.
In the Champions League. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.